with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is...
I was afraid, I didn't know what to do. A lot of us be coming in it.
And what I'll say was amazing to me was...
Season 2, welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. As you know, I'm sitting here with my co-host, Cameron Macias.
Coach Cam.
L3 Perspective, as you know, we talk about life, love, leadership.
As we've talked about in the past, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because at the end of the day, we do it for you guys.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Season 2 of the L3 Perspective, where we talk about life, love, leadership. We have two very special guests today. Looking forward to introducing them. Again, first and foremost, just want to thank you for your time, for your support as we continue to execute on these episodes. Cam, I'll toss it over to you.
Hey, what's up, guys? So as you already know, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like, because at the end of the day, we do it for y'all. And if you don't tell us what you're interested in, then we're just going to do whatever, and nobody wants that. So that being said, we have two dope guests today in the new studio.
Yes.
My man, Nathan and Behrang.
Let's go.
What we're going to do real quick, we're going to introduce them. They got some dope bios. So first off, Nathan, my man, is Nathan is the managing partner at Grizzly Peak Advisors. He is the former founder and CEO of Critical Pass, an e-commerce education company, which was acquired in 2021. Before founding Critical Pass, Nathan was a corporate litigator at Cooley LLP in San Francisco, where he focused on internet privacy and business litigation. At Grizzly Peak, Nathan focuses on helping small business owners improve their bottom line and making management less of a headache. He loves digging into businesses to understand how they work, what makes them succeed, and what's standing in the way of further growth and less stress for owners and management. Nathan has consulted for companies and serves as a mentor for aspiring Bay Area entrepreneurs. That's how we met. He is vice chair of the board of advisors for Bananas.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about now.
Yeah.
East Bay nonprofit serving families and childcare providers. Nathan was born and raised in Oakland, where he still lives with his wife and son.
The town.
That's
Town.
right. That's right.
And then Behrang, Big B,
Yeah.
is a founding partner as well of Grizzly Peak Advisors, providing business coaching and guidance to business owners, operators. With 20 plus years of real day-to-day experience owning, operating, managing, developing, and selling a business, he possesses the awareness and knowledge to help support, grow, and guide other business owners. Prior to Grizzly Peak Advisors, Behrang founded and was the owner-operator at Walnut Creek Lighting Company, Inc. He's complimented us on our lighting, by the way.
Well done.
Until he sold the company in late 2023. For 2 decades, Behrang was the driving force behind the company, which he founded, grew, developed, and sold. His company quickly became a beacon of success in the lighting and interior design industry. As the principal and operator, he tirelessly dedicated himself to building a business known for its profitability, exemplary work culture, and unparalleled reputation.
Let's go.
Behrang graduated from California Polytechnic University, San Luis Obispo, aka SLO, with a Bachelor's of Science in Industrial Technology and a double minor in Industrial Marketing and Sales, as well as Public Speaking. Holy shit.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Dude, you put your education in. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah,
Yep.
excited for sure.
So if you guys wouldn't mind, whichever wants to start first, like obviously we read the bios, but ultimately, tell us about growing up in the Bay.
You're older, so you.
Yeah, you want me to go? Yeah. No, what's not to like? Growing up in the Bay, I don't know. I think there's a couple things. I think it's definitely a character building trait, and it helps kind of define the person that you become.
Yeah.
I've met people from all over, and I can always come back to the people that you meet from the Bay as kind of this point of like reference where you're like, okay, I get it. I get the background. I get where you grew up. I get the experiences and the vibe that is associated with growing up in the Bay. I also think the schools that we went to and the environment, the sports teams, and And who we are was shaped and molded by growing up in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think for me, I kind of didn't realize how cool growing up in the Bay was. I mean, we're both East Bay kids. I'm from Oakland. And like, I remember I went to college in the Midwest in St. Louis, Missouri. And I remember getting there, and one of my first impressions was like, where are the Asian people?
Like
where
the melting
are the
pot.
Latino people, you know? And there is a good, like a sizable Black community here, but it's segregated, you know, like it is, you know, like I'm just hanging out with white people. Like this is weird. And so that really helped me feel like an appreciation for where we grew up.
Yeah.
And also like I started college in 2000, and that fall was like Bush for score, right?
Okay.
And like Bush became president,
Yeah.
and it was like, oh, like in that was a helpful part of it, is like understanding like, oh, I grew up in a bubble.
Right.
From a political perspective. So I still appreciate and I love the Bay, but I think it's also helpful to keep that perspective. Like this is a unique place, but it's a unique place that doesn't represent the United States, you know?
Yeah, I mean, so we talked about this is like, so I grew up in the Bay.
Yeah.
Oakland, Berkeley, Richmond, Marin. I was born in Hayward. Used to take the BART to San Francisco to go watch the X Games at the pier, you know, stuff like that. But I moved to Sacramento my junior year of high school. And I remember I didn't know what a Filipino was until I moved to Sacramento, because no one we didn't talk about it. It was just like, yo, like, we know you're brown. That's about it. Other than that, like, it's white and brown. It didn't like the culture question wasn't asked when I was growing up. Like I knew what people wore in general because maybe they told me for some reason, or there was like a customs thing. I had a lot of Asian friends growing up, but like if there was never a reason for that question to be asked, it wasn't asked. And so I remember like I used to talk about this, like when I moved to Sacramento, that's when I noticed not division per se, but it was like, well, what are you?
Yeah.
Where are you? Where are you from? Yeah. And so, joining the Air Force helped a lot.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I remember like being from Philly, you know, again, that wasn't a question, right? It was just like your neighborhood was just so mixed. I mean, obviously there were more than others, but when I entered the military, I remember meeting a kid from the Midwest, and he was just like, I never like in real life until coming here to basic training, ever seen a Black person.
Oh, wow.
And that, you know, being 17, hearing that, I was like, wow, like, where'd you grow up?
Yeah.
Like, where's that a thing?
Yeah.
But just kind of navigating through life, you realize like the different perspectives and backgrounds, and, you know, just having, when it comes to just business, right? How important it is to have a diverse group of individuals when serving a diverse group of population. So, it's interesting.
In addition to just like ethnicities and cultures, there's also just like a swag in the Bay Area.
Totally.
And there's like a hustling mentality that, like, I remember when you leave the Bay, you're a little shocked that others aren't like you. You know, I remember when we'd go off to college or when we'd go on a family trip, like everybody here takes things a little differently. Like in the Bay Area, you're always on like this kind of a grind, or you're on some kind of a hustle, or you've got this like ambitious drive or something to be a distinctive characteristic that like other places just don't seem to have. And you can spot other people from the Bay Area, like wherever you go. You're like traveling in Europe and you're like, oh, these guys are definitely from the Bay Area. You can just tell from everything. So yeah. So, I mean, I'm pretty grateful. I'm happy. I mean, if it wasn't for the Bay Area, I don't think I'd be who I am today.
I definitely am grateful for like growing up in the city. Learning and going through those bumps and bruises as a young kid. You know, now reflecting on that. And even when it comes to, again, I keep saying the business, but certain business decisions.
So let's start with your guys' business sides. So your company, I forgot the name now. Was it the
Critical Pass?
Critical Pass. So you started that after you saw a need in the bar exam
Yeah.
taking space. So
Yeah.
tell us about that.
So I went to law school, and like the way the law school and transition to becoming a lawyer ecosystem works is like you invest a lot of money to go to law school.
And time.
And time. But like you can't be a lawyer, the
And-
thing you've trained for 3 years to be, unless you pass the bar exam. And in California, like passage rates are something, I mean, it varies year to year, but at that time, like 55%. You know?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And so,
crazy.
Bro.
And so you're with all your classmates, like after you graduate, it's like you have 3 months, 2 months to like study for the bar exam.
Yeah.
It's a full-time job. And it's just an insane amount of information you have to memorize. Right?
Yeah.
And there are companies that give you like, they have full courses, right? And
Yeah.
it's just like they send you in the mail, you just get like these heavy ass boxes full of books. And it's so intimidating. You're like, I gotta know everything
stuff,
in
yeah.
these books.
Yeah.
And so people would come up with like different ideas for like how to memorize stuff. And I was like, I remember I was like halfway through and I was like, there needs to be like flashcards for this.
Oh, I love it.
Mm.
I love it.
And there were a couple, but they were like crappy and hard to get and out of date. And they were like printed on like Monopoly paper.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And so I started talking to people and I was like, you need to be flashcards. I was like, no, I want to make my own flashcards. And I was like, yeah. Like, what if you made a flashcard that like had some substantive info, but also some space on there to write your own notes and mnemonics and whatever, stuff like that. So I didn't do anything because I had to study for the bar exam. But then I went to Hawaii for a year after I graduated before I started working in San Francisco. Because I had a job I had a job working for a judge, right? As a clerk for a judge. And the idea kept like haunting me, right? I was like, I just don't understand, like, if someone executes this well, like, I don't understand why it wouldn't.
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
right?
Who wouldn't use it? It was like everybody. Yeah.
And that's what I tell, like, you know, aspiring entrepreneurs now is like, if the idea haunts you and like, if the only real significant variable is like comes down to execution,
Right.
like that's fully within your control.
Yeah.
You know?
Thanks.
And so I started on the weekends,
That's
like,
great.
writing out this content and eventually, like, you know, with a friend, found a printer, threw up a website, and then that's it, really. Told some people about it. And then I had to go back to start work at a big corporate law firm in San Francisco, and things like doing very kind of minimal work to keep the website up and inventory, you know, and like the sales just kind of keep trickling up on their own.
Yeah.
And I was at the firm for like, I think 3 years. And I was like, you know, I love the firm I work at.
Yeah.
But like, I was working a lot of hours.
Right.
I'm sure.
And I was like, I
I've
don't
watched Suits.
aspire to be a partner here. Right. Like, and I was
cool.
like, you know, I'll take an income hit if I quit and do this full time.
Right.
But like, what if I put my energy into it?
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. And started figuring out ways to get the word out and grow
Let's
it.
go.
And then several years later was in a position to have it be acquired. So,
Let's go.
yeah.
Nice.
That's a great story.
Yeah. What was that like acquiring process like?
So I'm like, there are legal things
Yeah.
that-
NDAs, bro.
Yeah.
NDAs.
that I'm not allowed to talk
Freaking
about.
NDAs.
Yeah.
But like, generally speaking, it's a stressful process,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, part of it is, this is my baby, right? And it's like, and like, someone else is just looking at it as like from a pure like nuts and bolts
Numbers.
Right.
It's a
Trying to
number.
rob the
It's a
cradle.
number game.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, but I
Right.
like,
Yeah.
But, and like, they don't care about that.
Right.
Like, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Like, that's a prerogative to
Yeah.
not care about that. And like, once you don't own it, like, you don't control it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, it's, you know, it's stressful, and diligence is a long, hard process.
Oh man, totally.
But once you go through it, and like, for me, I was telling Glenn, like, the harder part was, okay, I've sold it, and like, now what do I
For sure.
right, you know? And so that's kind of eventually how I got into realizing, like, I really liked creating a business. I really like helping other people think through business ideas
Yeah.
and like solve challenges in ways that I wish I had someone
Yeah.
to help me,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It's interesting because like most entrepreneurs, if they have an idea, they want to hold on to it.
Yeah.
Right. But instead you had this idea, and just due to whatever life, you were like, well, either the idea just stays here
Yeah.
and nothing comes to it, or
Right.
I could sell this idea.
Yeah.
Right.
That speaks volume on your vision as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because like we have so many ideas every single day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, all right, cool. Why hold on to this thing? Like very similar to the podcast. Right.
Yeah.
This was an idea that sat on the whiteboard for 2 years.
Right.
Right. Because my wife and I, we didn't know anything about podcasting, and we were going to launch it. Fast forward, we connected with Cam, right, and executed it. We talked about it for literally 7 minutes, and less than 2 months, we launched it.
Yeah. Look at it.
And so it's like,
Look at us now.
Yeah.
right. And it's like that idea a year and a half
let's
ago
go.
could have just still been sitting on the whiteboard, because we said, well, we don't know how to do whatever.
Right.
And we're smart enough to figure it out, but
Yeah.
like it wasn't a priority. Right. But then when we thought about it, like, hey, this idea is just one thing.
Right.
We'll get, 50,000 more in the next 24 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And it sat on that whiteboard because on some level it kind of haunted you, right? You were like,
right.
man, we need to do this. We need to do
Right.
this.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I knew it would happen.
Yeah.
It's just like, sometimes we come up with a plan, but then we connect with other people that are executors that also have vision and
Yeah.
values that align up with ours. And it's like, okay, now's the perfect time.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's something to be said too, because I keep hearing this like theme from people who have like made it per se, like based off what's like you made it, right? Like you built a company, you sold it, like that's the dream to a lot of people.
Sure.
But what I there's another guy that I always see at the Wounded Warrior events that we do for like veterans, and he's just like, I retired because of real estate. Like I sold a shit ton of real estate,
Yeah.
and I just hang out. And every time I see him, he gets like more grizzly. Like his beard is longer. And then, and last time I talked to him, I was like, hey man, like, how's it going? And he was like, oh, I just got back from whatever, like country, like, and he's like, but I think I'm kind of over it. Like,
Oh, wow.
he's like, I'm bored.
Oh, wow.
I don't have, Jordan Peterson talks about like, people, especially men, need a purpose. Like
Yeah.
we need something to do, right? And so
Interesting.
like I agree with that. Like we talk about that is, I'm not building this business so I don't have to do anything. Like
Right.
I'm building it, and we're building it because we want to do for us.
Yeah.
And when we put our efforts in, we want to know it's not going towards someone else's stuff. It's going towards our. It's
Yeah.
not because we want to just sit around and drink tea all day.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's just not who we are.
That's great.
What do you guys think about that? Because now you started Grizzly Peak.
Right.
So that obviously came from like you guys like helping people. You have the knowledge to help people.
Yeah. I mean, I think Behrang could probably speak to this too, but I think for me, it was like, I'm still young. Like, I don't want to like not have anything. Right. And so for me, it was like kind of a scramble to figure out, what do I do? Right.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
And it was kind of a discovery process of,
Mhm.
of being like, oh, like I can just give my time and talk to people. Right.
Right.
And like hear about cool business ideas and
Yeah.
say like, this is what I would do, or this is how I think you should think about it.
Yeah.
And help people kind of think through what's the framework to think through, like
Yeah.
how to take this from an idea to like getting off the ground.
Yeah.
I think a couple things to piggyback on what you're saying, Nathan, is I think from a perspective of business and guidance and having some wherewithal of knowing what to do, I think we're good at it.
Yeah.
And I think there's a little bit of a confidence level when you're working with somebody else and you listen to their roadblocks and you say like, okay, well, here's how I would navigate
Yeah.
that. And here's what I see could be done differently. And we talk about this often. It's kind of a resource that I wish we had, or I know I wish
100%.
I had it.
Yeah.
When I was going through my business, if I had somebody to bounce these type of ideas off of, or just somebody to give me some kind of guidance who had the experience or dealt with the type of problems I was dealing with, it would have been super valuable.
Yeah.
Totally. Because when you're in it, but it's a lot harder to think about it
For sure.
objectively, right?
Yeah.
Because you're caught up in it.
Yeah.
Whether it's time, emotion,
Mhm.
some combination of all those things. So like being able to talk to someone who's been through it, understands like, businesses and can say like, here's what I'm seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's invaluable and like totally in line with what Behrang just said. Like, I think that's how we like really connected is like, man, like there are consulting companies, but they're for like, the Fortune 500
For
and
sure.
stuff.
Right.
Like there's the McKinseys and the Boston Consulting, whatever. And then there's like business coaches.
Right.
And we don't need to get into business coaching, but like, there's not really a lot of people who've done it. Created, founded, built, sold companies that are like there to help small business people.
Right.
For sure.
And the ones that are there to do that, they're kind of old.
Yeah.
Like I've literally.
I was like, I don't want to say anything bad. And Behrang's like jumping off the top rope.
At some point, you also like run into people that you just don't have a lot to relate to, or they've seen things different, or it's a different time period or something. So like there's a little bit of like romance behind somebody that's about your same age, going through the stuff that you've gone through, and can kind of like be relevant to what you're dealing with.
We talked about that as like people who like sold VHS tapes. You're like, bro, this is not the market for you.
Yeah. Like, I'm really not trying to get guidance from the VHS dude.
Right.
I'd rather talk to somebody who knows. I mean, it's clear.
Right. Sorry about that.
So question for you, because you had mentioned that, you guys love, or you're skilled at it. You're really good at it. Like, was there a certain point in your guys' careers or experience where you were like, where you realized that you were good at it?
Yeah. So I think from a mentoring or advising standpoint, I think the knowledge and experience kind of led to feeling confident when working with others. And then, I started doing some nonprofit stuff. And in the nonprofit space, I started seeing other mentors doing the same thing. And you just kind of compare and you kind of see where other people and how their approach to it all is. And I felt like mine and Nathan's abilities were different. And I felt like there's a group of people out there that maybe were a little more removed than Nathan and I were. And so because of that, you just breathe this, this confidence in that, I think I might be better off at doing this. Plus, I think I enjoy it. Like I truly like listening to others and their experiences, and then being able to add some insight to say like, have you thought of approaching it like this? Or here's how I would do it. And from the nonprofit side of things led us to doing the advisory that we have.
Yep. I think for me, when you were asking that question, Behrang, I was thinking like, for myself, I remember when I was running my company, like, every once in a while people would just come up and be like, how do you know? Like they would ask questions that I was like, oh, I don't have an answer for that, but it would make me think about it. Like one question I would get a lot is like, how do you know if your business is a good idea or something? And I was like,
that's a great question. Yeah, it's a great question.
And I alluded to it earlier, like I would sit down and think about it. And I was like, I think what it comes down to is like, if your idea is something that like, it keeps coming back to you. Cause I've had plenty of business ideas that in the moment you're like, this is going to kill.
Right.
And then like a week later, you're like, that was stupid.
Yeah, I'm over it. You're already over it. When you're already over it.
And so like, don't start the minute you're like, have this, like, this is going to kill. Like, let it percolate, let it marinate, let it, and if it's still like gets at you, if it's still itching, then you got to start thinking about what's the execution, right? And I think it's like, if the reason it doesn't work is because you executed poorly, weirdly enough, no, it sounds weird, that's a good reason to start a business, right? Because the big variable is on you, right?
Clip that.
Yeah.
So, Behrang, I want to hear about your experience. So, like, we talked about Nathan, how he started his company. You're on the different side of the spectrum as far as like you operated like a building, like employees, like all these things. Like, tell us about that. Like, how did you
Yeah.
start?
Yeah. Okay. So in 2003, so 21 years ago now, 2003, I opened the doors to
man.
my showroom.
I was in high school.
And yeah, I know, dude. I know. Time flies. I still remember the first day. So you open the doors to the showroom of this thing that you've created, and you kind of have no concept of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember that same anxiety and that same feeling going into it. And like, so every day for 20 years, you're opening the doors to the showroom, and you started to develop this something special.
Yeah.
It was 20 years to the day that then I ended up selling the company.
Oh, wow.
And so that's, that's a career in most industries. The day-to-day operations of a company, how to deal with staffing, how to deal with vendors, how to deal with suppliers, how to deal with freight companies. I mean, from every aspect of it. And we used to have a saying there that we would, you'd wear multiple hats.
Oh, yeah.
In this company, right? So like I was the owner operator as well as like I'm taking out the garbage every night, right? So you develop this culture of being able to do everything and not being above doing everything.
For sure.
We built the company based off of the philosophy of support and service was going to be our differentiator, as opposed to being like the low price leader.
For sure.
Or we're not competing with like the online companies that you can get things super cheap or even super efficiently. Like you would have to seek us out. But you get from that the level of support, the level of knowledge, the service, and we were incredibly efficient and structured in what we did. We had this thing, like we wouldn't drop the ball. Nothing would slip through the cracks with us. And I think it showed. We had a 20-year unblemished reputation of being like the go-to in our industry.
Yeah. So
And
why
did that-
lights? Sorry.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Did that reputation, like, did you carry that intention like from the day you opened it, or did it like build? And like how long does it take for that reputation to get out there in the community?
Great question. So yes.
See?
Yeah, it was a great question.
See?
You should.
This is
He's
my
just saying,
podcast.
he's just saying that.
Yes. So from the beginning, we built it on the idea that we're going to be the most knowledgeable. We're going to be the most supportive. We're going to be the one that when stuff happens, you can seek our guidance. That was just inherent in who we were.
Yeah.
And that's how we built the company. The question of like, how quickly did the word get out, or how quickly did people discover that in us? I think it starts from the very beginning, that like, as you start, as clients start seeing what they're receiving by coming to you, word of mouth spreads and your own confidence builds, your staff sees it. And so as an entire package, it starts to develop quickly. And then once like the industry starts to discover you, from like the designers, the architects, the builders, homeowners, you name it, it starts to like balloon way quicker than small steps.
Yeah.
I have a question. So you had said the word culture.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of people in business, or just leading people in general, that have a hard time of creating a positive culture.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm assisting this nonprofit create their culture, and what the culture that we're creating is a culture of excellence.
Yep.
And so one of the questions that I have for the both of you is, in leading people, or in these businesses, what were some things that was important to who you guys are in helping to create a positive culture in the workspace?
Yeah. I'll answer first and then pass it over. I think one of the biggest attributes in being a business owner, establishing a strong work ethic and culture, is holding yourself to these standards that you're hopeful others are going to reach. both in my like professional as well as my personal life, I hold myself to real high standards. And sometimes it comes back to bite you. It's not always the best characteristic.
Yeah.
But it's the reality, right?
Yeah.
So that's like who I am, and that's how I carry myself. And in turn, that's what I portray, and that's what like your staff then embraces, and then that's what your clients embrace, because that's what they come to expect. And so it starts from truly being inside you as a person, as a trait that you have, and then it just blends to the outside world.
Yeah. So one of the things that Nathan helped me with, we talked about this, was I used to get really
I
frustrated.
remember this.
Yeah, I know, you know,
Yeah.
I know you know what I'm talking about. Is the standard, right? Because like me, I'm Johnny on the spot. I'm gonna email you back quickly unless my hands are actually like tied. I'm doing something.
All right.
I'm gonna pay invoices as soon as you send them. All those things.
That's right.
And you know, I appreciate the guidance that Nathan gave, because he's been there, right? And so like I brought it to him, and he said, "You got two choices, bro."
Right.
He said, "You either get over it, because 90% of society just doesn't operate like that."
Right.
And he said, "Or you can continue to just be upset every day."
Yeah.
And but like, I remember I called G and I said, "I'm going to make a conscious choice to just not be upset every day." Like, cause I can't control that. But what I took from that as well is I came to our entire team and I said, no one will ever be waiting on us.
Yeah.
That's the
right.
standard we will have. You know, we can't, if we can't execute because someone else is wasting time, that's on them. But no one will ever say we're waiting on FLG or the L3 or whatever. And so, and that served us well, right? That is the standard now that has like really kind of built us up in the community here, is like, they're not here to play. Like if they tell you they're going to do it, they do it, and they do it in an excellent way that will have you coming back for more.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
You can say it. You also have to practice
You got it.
it.
Yeah.
100%.
And if you yourself are just like a preacher of this to others, it doesn't always resonate. They have to physically see it. You have to be a leader by example.
Yeah.
Right. Like the captain goes down with the ship. Like you have to be the first one there, the last one to leave.
Ship
you
don't
have
go
to
down.
be the one that's sweeping and cleaning. So you show everybody like, hey, this is going to be a clean environment. Whatever you want to be seen, you have to put that foot forward.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think a lot of what I've learned about building good culture is through mistakes I've made, right? About things that I was like looking back.
That's a
like,
great point.
oh, that wasn't the best way to do that, right? And I think what Behrang's saying about like when Behrang said taking out the garbage, like if you have a new hire and that new hire sees that the owner is there and taking out the garbage at the end of the day.
Totally.
Like that sets an example.
For sure.
I also think specifics are important, right? So like you can say we want a culture of excellence. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing to say, but I would say, well, what does that mean to you? Right. And that everyone needs to understand that this is what your like definition of a culture of excellence means. Right.
Yeah.
And because that can mean different things to different people, right? And so it's very important to make sure everyone's on the same page, because if someone messes up, maybe they're the wrong person, maybe it's not a good fit, but sometimes, maybe oftentimes, it's because you guys didn't have a meeting of the minds
standard
on
wasn't
this,
set.
right? Like they didn't understand that this is what you meant, this is what your expectation was. So like as a leader, as an owner, operator, manager, whatever, like it's on you to not allow your employees to make assumptions, right?
100%. I agree. I remember doing one-on-ones with each of the team members, and then doing one-on-ones with the managers. And in those questions or in that connection time, it was just simply trying to figure out, so I see the big picture goal of what needs to happen.
Yeah.
How do we take the current talent that we have and kind of get that in alignment? And right. And so the excellence piece came because of there was a consistency of individuals wanting to get to their next level, but they didn't know how. And then, and obviously the company's mission tied to excellence.
Yeah.
And so I remember talking to them, and Cam and I were talking about this, some months back, about the excellence piece isn't something that you do, but it's something that you become. And so in those one-on-ones, we were able to define that. Like, what is, like, how do you become excellent at what you do, not just doing excellent things. And so one of the things that we've been able to
That's a
help
great question.
the organization with is take their personal and professional goals and align it with the company's vision and mission. And daily, well, almost weekly for sure, but daily practicing what that looks like. And like you said, to your point, just leading by example. Like we talk about taking out the garbage. How are you taking it out? It's not the excellence piece is the doing, it's the becoming,
Yeah.
right? Like I want to do it with excellence. This is how it's the action piece to it.
Yeah.
And so
It's like continuing the standard too, because even like with our team, you know, I've sat down and I always constantly ask them, like, what are we accomplishing here?
Yeah.
Like, you know, with our manager, Jazz, you know, she helps manage the VAs for us. And I've told her, I said, there will come a day where I hope you walk away
Yeah.
because you've made enough money or we've built it to the point, because she's our assistant too, right? And it's like, I hope there comes a day where you're like, I can't be your assistant anymore because the management side has gotten doing so well that now it's time for me to, and I'm like, I want that. I don't always want you to be here. And if anything, I want you to grow to where like, you're like, hey, it's been great with your company, but now I'm doing my own company, or now I'm able to retire. Like, you know, so we asked a lot of those things, like, what are we doing here? You know? And like G was saying, is aligning it to those motivations, I don't think happens enough, because so many people just go into offices and jobs with like an employee mindset, and not many people question that mindset.
The standards that you set play huge dividends down the road. Like I would not have been able to sell the company if it wasn't an attractive company to somebody else.
Your reviews is whack.
Because, because of this impression that's out there that people had of this
Reputation.
business. Yeah, the reputation. I mean, we used to tell, I mean, it was truly, when I would hire people and I talk to people, it's treat every single person like a 5-star Yelp review.
Yeah.
Like we want somebody that's even coming in asking for directions to leave like, man, those were the best directions I've ever seen.
And lights in there was.
Did you guys do, like, going back to the culture, did you have any review systems, like employee reviews, that kind of stuff?
So it's funny, we would hire during like our interview process, I would sit down with these people and say, I don't want you to be like a good salesperson. We're going to get sales. I don't want you to be like our social media. I don't want you to be great at marketing. I don't want you to be great at anything. But what I do want us to be great at is our culture here. We had a saying, like the Walnut Creek Lighting culture, our culture here has to be comfortable and enjoyable for everybody that's here. And if every day you're coming to work and you feel like you're walking on eggshells, or you're just not comfortable, or it's just the vibe isn't comfortable, I'm not looking for that. So like you could be the greatest salesperson and crush it on the sales floor, but if the work culture's thing, we're just it's not a good partnership for both of us.
For sure.
Well, I'm supposed to ask the questions now?
No, I mean, you said it's your podcast. So moving into this new season for you guys, like, you know, because you both have kids as well. So some younger than older and even others. But like, you know, you guys have worked really hard. You guys have sold businesses. You're doing well. What does the future balance look like? You know, now that you have children who are like about to graduate high school, or, you know, that are like gonna start middle or elementary school, or actually no, how old are you? Kindergarten. Yeah,
not even.
Still climbing couches.
Yeah, still climbing couches and saying no.
1 month.
But like, so what does that look like? Because now you guys have this kind of new baby, right? And it's like, you don't obviously want it to turn into another huge grind, because you worked hard so you could enjoy time. So what does that balance look like now?
It's challenging, right? Like, I think for me personally, like, to be totally honest, like being a father, having a son is fantastic. The hard part for me, going back to like culture and whatever, is like being a team member with my wife, right? And like co-parenting, and that we've worked on things together kind of before, but
Yeah.
never
Mhm.
in like this
Yeah,
such
yeah.
an involved way.
This is a human.
Yeah.
This is the biggest. This is the
Right.
biggest you could do.
Right.
That's it. I've
And
never
it's-
heard anybody talk about that. That's a good
and
point.
it's like, to what extent do we have to be on the same page, and to what extent
Mhm.
are our just kind of natural differences okay, and in the long run going to be good for our son, right?
For sure.
And so I'm still working through that. I'm still
Yeah.
trying to figure out like, what is the balance here, and
Right.
like how does this all work? And like, you can read all the books you want, but
Right.
like,
Yeah.
come on, it's
No,
gonna,
yeah, it's yeah.
you got to kind of work your way through it. So I mean, Behrang has teenagers,
Yep.
and I'm asking him constantly just like
Yeah.
random ass questions
Yeah.
about,
Yeah.
because I'm just like, I'm figuring it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, even when you talk about reference point, though, like he's got teenagers, you have the little toddler.
Yeah.
His reference point's obviously different too.
Totally.
Because
Yeah.
when he grew, so
Yeah.
I think we talk about that as like raising our kids in social media age. Like, what's the balance, right? Like,
Yeah.
my kids aren't old enough where I let them have social media, but we talk about it. Like, I'm involved, or I let them play on their phones. There's limits on internet in my
Yeah.
house, and I actually, that got validated because I was talking to an administrator for the school district, and there's like a state of emergency right now where there's things being done once parents go to sleep. And so
What?
on the internet, like bullying,
Yeah.
inappropriate, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, like shit gets shut off in my house after like 8 o'clock. And she was like, I wish more parents would do that, because we're finding that's when most of these
Yeah.
hurtful things to our kids are being done, is when
Yeah.
we're sleeping.
Yeah.
Dude, read. I know I just said like parenting books, whatever. This is not a parenting book.
He's like, no, this is a
But
good
no,
one.
read The Anxious Generation. I think it's by Jonathan Haidt or something.
Okay.
H-A, I don't know. It's about,
Anxious
but
generation.
he's I think a business school professor at NYU.
Okay.
And it's all about how like phones have made our kids kind of crazy.
Totally.
Okay.
Totally.
And the differences in how it affects boys versus girls. And it's
Mhm.
like, it's terrifying and fascinating at the same time.
Yeah.
Like for me,
My kids might
my
hate
version of
this.
that right now is like TV, right?
Yeah.
Is
Right.
my kid
Bluey.
just discovered.
Yeah.
Like, and then, we put on Coco Melon, and I didn't know that Coco Melon's crack.
Yeah.
It's visual
You're done.
crack.
You
Yeah.
are done.
So now we're and it's like, okay, how do I balance? And,
Right.
Right.
Anyways,
I heard a
Yeah.
story about a friend of mine who said that she walked into her kid's daycare, and there was a kid standing on a desk screaming Coco Melon.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a real thing.
The
It's
thing
real.
is, like, there's other like little kid shows that are honestly not bad to watch as
For
a
sure.
parent. Coco Melon is brutal.
It's-
Brutal.
That's true. I remember my baby girl. She says, "Dad, can you put on my show? Can you put on
yeah.
my show? Like,
Show.
yeah,
Oh, the
we
Miss
gotta-
Rachel chick?
Yeah. Well, it's switching from Miss Rachel now to Daniel Tiger.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I've
Daniel
heard good
Tiger
things
taught
about
Ivy
Daniel
how to
Tiger.
potty train.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do Trash Truck, and so my son, he's just,
Trash truck?
dude, it's good.
It's good.
Check out Trash Truck, man. And so my son will just like walk around and go, trash.
So real quick, you had mentioned a book. What are 2 books that you guys would recommend that are like your guys' go-to, or you go back and reread every few years or whatever?
I'm more of a podcast guy.
Okay.
So
That-
yeah. So
So why don't you listen to our
So
podcast?
besides the
Yeah.
LP perspective,
so my number one podcast.
Clip it.
Right. No, I like a lot of like I get a lot of my inspiration. I get a lot of my motivation from podcasts I listen to. Honestly, like driving the kids, picking up the kids, doing those type of things. So
Top 2 podcasts then.
top 2 a lot of my podcasts are like daily topic things or even like sports based things
Yeah.
and end up things. So I follow Bill Simmons a lot. I really love Bill Simmons podcasts. You should you should definitely listen to Bill Simmons podcast. And then I also like like the history podcast. I do a lot of like,
Okay.
yeah, like
Have you heard those murder myths or not like the
True
crime?
true crimes, dude.
Bro,
Yes.
those
Yeah, some of them are good.
my mom put me onto that. We
Yeah.
went on a trip and she was like, check this out. And it
Yeah.
started talking about some guy in New York who like was the maintenance guy for a school district and
Oh,
ended
wow.
up being damn near like a mob boss of
Yeah,
like
yeah,
northern
yeah,
New
yeah.
York school district. It was crazy.
Yeah. For me, but like, okay, full disclosure, I don't really like nonfiction business books, and I don't
Oh, good.
recommend them
Oh, good.
because this is kind of trite, but like, if you're so good, why are you writing a book about it? You know, but
Oh,
also like
interesting.
some of even though I just talked about the Anxious Generation, that's not a business book really,
Mhm.
but like I also just don't find it like I don't want to spend my free time
Mm.
thinking about work stuff, right?
Mhm.
So I love to read, but I read fiction. So if you
Okay.
want to
Oh, okay.
turn this into like what are great fiction books
Yeah.
podcasts,
Yeah, yeah.
like
I mean, what do you
Yeah,
I
enjoy?
can tell you,
yeah.
I'll tell you my favorite authors. Like I love Jonathan. I love books that are like really like interesting characters and like how the
Yeah.
characters relate to each other. So like Jonathan Franzen, Zadie Smith, Barbara Kingsolver,
Mhm.
like those are some great
Mhm.
books. Like almost anything any of those people ever wrote.
Mhm.
Cormac McCarthy, rest in peace, just died a few months ago.
Oh,
but
shit.
like,
Mhm.
yeah, I've got like stacks of books, and like my wife
Mm.
kind of got me into it. I was not an avid reader before.
Okay.
I will say, like, though, before there's one thing that has stuck with me so hard from a nonfiction book, which do you guys know who Tim Ferriss is? The 4 Hour Work Week.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I mean, it came out forever ago, and like honestly, the book itself, I was like, whatever. But there's one piece that I was like, it's like a quarter of a chapter, I think.
Mhm.
Drop it.
And it was like the big mistake people make is they think about their income in terms of their total salary versus their income based on how long they have to work to get that income. And I read this while like I had just started Critical Pass, but I was still at the law firm
Mm-hmm.
putting in sometimes 60, 80 hour work, and I was making great money, but I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
If I put 80 hours into the
Yeah.
Critical
Yeah,
Pass,
yeah.
this isn't actually as good a money as I thought it was.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I never considered that. It was like
A light
Yeah.
bulb
you
moment.
know?
Yeah.
And it really helped me like give me grounding to be
Mhm.
like, this is a reasonable decision. Like it's
Mhm.
not just that I want to do this, like to
It's good.
go work on this business full time. Like there's a reasonable way of looking at this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, real quick,
Yeah. Yeah.
it pertains to that. So, the whole Dirty Pop Netflix thing last night. That's that point is they were talking about when they got their first checks, and they gave them a check, and it was like $10,000, and like one of the members was like, "That's the most money anyone's ever handed me a check for."
Right.
But one of the other members was like, "How much did you make at Outback in a year, though?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, wait a minute," because
Yeah,
like
right,
at
right.
first glance he's like, "Oh, $10,000 check," but you just worked for a whole year,
Yeah, right.
and then got a $10,000 check,
Right.
and like toured the world. So like
Mhm.
it's that,
Yeah.
like, that we always talk about
Perspective,
that perspective
perspective,
shift, right? So we're
Yeah.
about that, G.
No. You're good.
I know I'm good.
Like a lot of times, what'd you say?
I know I'm good.
A lot of times, like when you guys are sharing a lot of things, like I put it in pictures in my head, right? And so when you were talking about, I read a lot of fictional books, and immediately my mind went to as a lot of entrepreneurs, it's hard for them to shut off, right? And so what I gather from what you were saying was, like, I don't want to read a book and I'm still working,
Yeah.
right? I'm still working, but I shut that off and I transitioned to something else. Like, is it hard for you guys to switch off to off mode?
Turn off.
Yeah. And the reason why I asked is because a lot of business folks that we've talked to, entrepreneurs, it's hard for them to shut that off. And I know for me personally, when I went to Disneyland, I told my family, hey, so two things. One, I'm going to make sure I turn off my phone and notifications, and then I won't open up my laptop, right, while we're here. And I hadn't did that. I haven't done that in 5 years. And now I feel a lot more mentally refreshed, but
How'd
it's
it go?
hard. But it was amazing. It was
Yeah.
amazing.
Right.
I didn't
Um,
like it.
Yeah.
I text G, he didn't
yeah.
answer.
The first couple hours, it was hard for me to do,
Right.
or it was challenging. but I reminded myself of why I was there and to make sure that I was present.
Yeah.
And so it was easy for me to then to switch my mindset. But I know a lot of entrepreneurs, it's very hard for them to shut off. And so is it hard for you guys? And then how do you do it?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great question. A lot of these entrepreneurs that I do mentorship for, they always get into this idea of like leaving their 9 to 5, starting
Like right away.
starting a business. And one of their reasons for it is for a like flexible schedule. So something like this.
Freedom.
And one of the things I bring up to them is, look, there's this romance behind owning and operating your own business and stuff like that. But the reality is you're going to work harder than you've ever worked before.
Shit is hard,
And
son.
it's going to take more time and more effort, and all of your attention and focus is going to go to this. And so I'm glad we're bringing this up, because the reality is, in order to be a motivated, ambitious, successful business owner, it's hard to shut off. And you're married to this. And one of the reasons it is good is because all of your attention and focus is there. So to answer your question, I don't think I had much shut off time in the 20 years that I had it. And actually, one of the catalysts to selling the company was, I am not going to be able to pull back halfway and gain more time and give up more time. It's either all or nothing. So for me and my perspective, the recipe to a successful and profitable company is a full engaged staff ownership. So I didn't have that like shut down time.
Yeah. I think it's also important to talk about like, what does shutting off mean, right? Does it mean I'm not doing work, or does it mean like I'm shutting off my brain from thinking about work, right? Because I think, both are important, but the latter is probably not discussed as much, and I think is more important, because like your good ideas for your business are going to come when you're not in the midst of it, right?
Exactly.
And not like stewing and blah, blah, blah. Because like that's partly back to my business books thing, is like, it just encourages you to like tinker, right? It just, or like, oh, I got to do this. Oh, I got to do that. Oh, I got to do that. Instead of like, hold on, let's take inventory. Let's see like, what do we actually like, what's a strategic, well thought out thing to do?
And I think that's where Nathan and I found this opportunity to form our new business, and we can be a resource for business owners that are currently in the weeds and don't have the bandwidth to come up for air, or are dealing with all of these uncharted waters that we have seen before. And that's where we can kind of add that value.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like to Behrang's point, exactly. Like, I think the reason you need to shut off is to help you get grounded, get refreshed. I think there's a lot of like actually new, interesting science about that, which is like the best ideas and stuff come not from like sitting and trying to think, but from like those like shower moments where you're like fucking sitting in the shower or something like that. And like, and that's when you're shut off, right? So that's, that's why I love reading fiction books and stuff like that, is like, that helps me kind of get away from it, right? Get lost in something else.
Yeah.
I legit do some of my best thinking in the shower.
Yeah.
Like 100%. Sometimes when it's cloudy, I'm like, I need to just take a shower.
It was interesting. So I created a couple, or my wife and I created a handful of leadership symposiums or leadership curriculums for the Air Force, or when I was active duty. And almost every one of those ideas was birthed in the shower.
Yeah.
When I thought about, hey babe, what do you think about this idea? Like,
That's
and, she's really good at refining ideas.
That's right.
And so that's interesting too.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, G, hit him with the question.
Yeah. So actually, I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' perspectives on this. So 3 words: life, love, or leadership. If each of you can share something that's on your heart and just share it with our listeners. Pick one of those words, 60 seconds or less. Just kind of share whatever comes to mind. Life, love,
Oh,
or
do
leadership.
not look at me.
You want me to go first?
I think
You
it's
want me
only
to go
fair
first?
Okay, I'll
that
go
Nathan
first.
goes first because I think every question, combo question.
Oh,
we ask-
So,
okay.
so I'm
All right.
interested because I was telling you guys is I feel like you and G are very similar.
Yeah.
And Nathan and I are somewhat
similar,
similar, like the
okay.
way that we think,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So I'm
Okay.
interested.
Like, I honestly don't even understand the question, dude.
No worries. So 3 words: life, love, or leadership. Pick one
Yeah.
of those words,
All right.
and then when you think about that word, whatever comes to mind,
Yeah.
just share whatever's on.
And it can
your
be
heart.
personal or professional.
Yeah. All right. I think from a leadership perspective, understanding strengths and weaknesses is super valuable. And if you know what you are good at, what you suck at, those 2 knowledge points are more valuable than like trial and error, or like maybe I'll try this or not try that. Knowing what your abilities are is half of the battle in leadership. You want to you want to talk about love or life? You want to
Metrics.
yeah,
Life. And life. I'll choose life.
okay,
Right?
all right.
Because, like, I think
60 seconds. You have 60 seconds or less, he said.
You're down to
There's-
50 right
there's
now.
all these ideas running through my head. I don't know. Like, I think when I think about life, like, I'm going way into a tangent here.
Okay, here we
Good.
go.
Please.
Bring
Here
it
we
in,
go.
Doug.
Like 17 years ago, I was in like a very serious accident. Like, I almost lost my life. Right.
Oh, snap.
And like, I broke 3 vertebrae. I was in a hospital, had to have surgery, like had to learn to walk again, like crazy accident. This happened in Africa, by the way.
What?
Yeah. And so it was too far to get back to the United States to have surgery.
Dude.
Had to get surgery in the Middle East. And yeah.
Crazy. This is a
Wait,
whole
hold
podcast.
on.
We should have done
No,
the
no.
podcast on this.
So anyway,
this is
I
wild.
never heard
this
of
was like a crazy traumatic like thing that happened, and then like I was thinking, like, I think like 2 years after, I would like, I think of every time Wimbledon comes on every year, I think about it because Wimbledon, there was only thing on the TV.
Oh,
in the
really?
hospital
Interesting. That's all you
that I
got to
could,
watch.
like, understand or whatever. And I don't fucking like tennis.
Yeah.
But I was just like, all I can do is watch Wimbledon. So every year Wimbledon happens, I think about it, right? And so anyways, what I learned from that, or what I think about, is like, crazy things happen, right?
Yeah.
And there doesn't have to be meaning to them, right? Like, bad things happen and it doesn't have to be meaning, and it's just about how you respond to them, right?
Yeah.
And like,
It's great.
and
That's a great tip.
and you can just move forward and like accept that things can be traumatic, and way worse things have happened to other people than have happened to me, for sure. But like, I think it's just like, you don't have to ascribe meaning to all the things that
For
happen
sure.
in your life, and you can just accept that, like, life can be a big ball of randomness, and it's okay, and like embracing uncertainty is okay.
Appreciate that.
I can dig it.
Yeah.
All right, so we appreciate y'all.
definitely.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So real quick, as we close out, can you just share how you guys connected, you and Nathan?
Oh, yeah. So when we were starting, like we talked about, as I was like, I feel like I need to talk to somebody who's been through this, or like someone, because like I have a lot of knowledge, but I want to talk to someone who has a frame of mind here. And so the SBA has the SCORE program, which like nobody knows about, by the way. Like,
right.
I tell people all the time, like, oh yeah, my SCORE, and they're like, what is that?
Yeah.
like SCORE
Seriously.
goal, and I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I don't remember what it stands for. I just know it's like CEO people, and so but I went on the website, and actually, you know what? It was after Veterans Day last year, because the SBA did a thing out here for veterans.
cool.
Oh, that's
And
what it
the
was.
director for San Francisco SBA was out here, and he was like, SCORE, SBDC, whatever. And I was like, oh, let me go check out the score thing.
Yeah.
And I signed up, and it was like, what are you looking? You know, you got to put in what you're looking for. I think that's kind of the main like what your goals are, like who you are, what your company is, and then they sent me old Nate Dogg over here. And you know, and it was refreshing because I was worried. I was like, am I gonna get like some super old dude that I'm like, dude, I can't fucking relate to you. Like, you know,
you could have.
I mean, I know,
very well could
I know.
have.
Like now that I hear more and more about it, I'm like, I got really fortunate. And then, you know, like he's, you know, funny enough, he lives where I used to live, like in the Bay, like right off of college. And so it was very, you know, it was great. And so we had our first meeting, and he was like, damn, you're all over the place. But there's substance, right? And so kind of over the last year-ish or less than a year, but we've like structured it there and there. And we, you know, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's a once a month meeting. You know, I usually give him 17 updates. And he's just like, all right.
No, but, and yeah, I mean, that's Behrang does kind of that volunteer mentoring too. And that's how we met. And we decided like, this needs to be available for like, you know, kind of people who've already started a company and they want to get to that next level, or they want to fix something that's wrong. But like I love like talking to any kind of business people, and like I love seeing like the growth that you guys have done and what you guys have become, and you know, built this great studio, and you guys are killing it. And so
Right.
I'm a proud parent.
Mad props.
And speaking of Veterans Day, it's coming up.
I know.
So props to both you guys. Thank you guys for
appreciate you
to our wonderful country.
Yes, sir. Almost to retirement.
Welcome to the team.
Yeah.
That's good.
So as we close out, we always like to make sure we give you, the guests opportunity to tell people where to find them. So especially with you guys starting Grizzly Peak.
Yeah.
You know, what can people expect? How can they get a hold of you? What's the best way to contact you guys?
GrizzlyPeakAdvisors.com. Advisors with a O-R-S.
Okay.
And we are happy to talk to anyone. Like, to be fully honest, we've made our money, like, and we like doing this work. And so like, we like hearing about businesses, and there might be opportunities that we can help. And there might be opportunities where like, it's not a good fit, but we know people who could help you, you know?
Facts.
And so like the way we generally work is we like to kind of hear what you're dealing with, and then we'll put a plan together, and we'll say like, here's what we think we could help you with. And here's how long like we think that might take. And here's what we do, which is kind of the first stage is really dig in. The second stage is really like kind of get to like an analytical process of like, here are the actual changes you can make. And then it's kind of an accountability check-in and like helping you implement those changes kind of thing. I took that whole question.
No, that was great.
I didn't leave you crumbs.
Check it out.
That was great.
Hey.
So can you speak on the logo?
Yeah. So the company name and the logo, Grizzly Peak, we both grew up, born and raised in the Bay Area, in the East Bay. Where we currently live, our house is divided by a road called Grizzly Peak. Okay. It's kind of in keeping with who we are, where we grew up. And
you get amazing views of the Bay from Grizzly Peak.
Yeah, that's right.
So if you're ever in there, take a trip up to Grizzly.
We'll expect an invite soon.
Absolutely. Good.
Well, yeah, Nathan, Behrang, absolute pleasure. Like I said, I've been looking forward to connecting with you guys almost the last year. Yeah. I recently heard your name in the mix the last, I think, 2 or 3 months. So thank you guys for coming up and being our first guests in our newly designed and renovated studio.
Yeah, baby.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stay up here.
I'm tired.
I brought an air mattress.
I thought about that. I was like, there's apocalypse. We're good here. But cool. Well, we appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
Another episode.
Thanks for having us.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
See y'all later.
All right.
So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is...
I was afraid, you know. I didn't know what to do. A lot of us be coming in it.
And what I'll say was amazing to me was
Season 2, welcome back to the L3 Perspective. My name is Glenn Davis. As you know, I'm sitting here with my co-host, Cameron Macias.
Coach Cam.
L3 Perspective, as you know, where we talk about life, love, leadership.
As we've talked about in the past, like, love, share, subscribe. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you don't like. Because at the end of the day, we do it for you guys.